Welcome back to Half Thumbed Homestead. We're going to change some rollers out on this dryer. And no, this is not how I lost my thumb. It sounds like this when running. That's a bad roller, or more than one bad roller. I bought a kit online. Includes a new belt, the rollers, everything else. That's the part number of it there. I'll link it in the description below. Comes with a new idler pulley, 4 new rollers, and a new belt. For the average homeowner, this is probably out of a 5, probably a 3.5. It's a little more complicated, and it can be discouraging because you have to take your dryer all the way apart. But don't be scared, you can do it. And if you at any point decide that it's not for you, call yourself a professional. We start by pulling power. And then we're going to pull the machine out. We also have to disconnect the hose down there, which it'll probably pop right off as soon as I pull the dryer out. Like I said, the hose popped off when I pulled on it, so we'll have to fix that. And always have a vacuum around, because you will need to clean. They always get stuff underneath them, and you just can't get it all. So let's clean that up, and then we'll keep on going. We're going to start by taking these 2 screws out, and the whole lid should slide towards us, or towards the back of the machine, and come off. I like to have one of these magnetic trays to put my screws in, and I won't lose anything. So once that's loose, it should slide right back. And that's how you take the top off. You don't want to run this with the top off. If you do, be incredibly careful. This is your belt, and this drum whole thing spins. So we'll set that lid aside. Another reason to have your vacuum around is you want to clean out inside the dryer as well. There's fuzz everywhere. Just take your time. Clean it all up as you go. Next, we're going to take the door off. 2 screws. There's a retainer screw behind this. It's going to keep it from falling off. Be prepared just in case there's not one, but there should be one. I'll show you that as I take it off here. See how it leaned forward and it stopped? That retainer screw back there, when you pick it up, see it? All it does is go inside that keyway and holds the door in case it comes loose and doesn't fall off the machine. All right, the next step is for us to pull the front panel off. So to take the control panel off, it's held in by these clips here, and they have a retention piece where you have to push aft on this plastic to pop it loose. So you push towards the back and pull it up. It pops up there, like so. Don't pull too hard, because you'll break it. So you're going to pull forward, and I'll try and get in there so you can see these clips down there. There's another good view of the clip there. See if I can zoom in on a little bit. Right there. So you got to pull that clip back a little bit to release it. Camera's fighting me. So I'm going to make sure I do this the right way, and then I'll record it. So this is probably the hardest part. I'm sure someone out there's got an easy way to do this, but you got to get behind that clip there to release it, or you're going to break it. So I got a little pick here, I'm getting behind it, and you'll see it pop up there, and you got to do the same to the other side over there. There's 2 clips in here we got to free up. Otherwise, if they break off, then the plastic's no good. It won't stay on like it's supposed to. I may have to go to the other side to do this one. There we go. So they just pop loose, and then it lifts up, comes off. So there's a catch back here, just a real tiny one that goes inside that lip, and that prevents this from popping out. And then you have the 2 connectors over here to take loose to pull the front face off. Because you need this off to get to these 4 screws on top to finish taking the front of it off. So squeeze here to release the clip, the lock, and slide it out. Same thing with this one. Where that little perforation is there, you're just going to grab a hold of it. You're going to push down a little bit, and that's going to push these 2 locks underneath the clasp there. See it locked? It goes underneath and pulls out. And we can set this aside with everything else. Set that aside. Now we're going to take off the front face here, which is going to be these, I think just those 1, 2, 3, 4 screws, and it should loosen the face up here. Different lengths, different types of threads. And then we're going to take off these 4 screws for the face to come the rest of the way off. Keep in mind all these pieces of metal are sharp. So you'll probably see me cut myself. I would suggest wearing gloves if you don't want to cut yourself. So now that all the screws are out, so once you get those 4 screws out, and you have the door off and then the other screws, so you take the 2 door screws off, this one, this one, this one, and that one. So there's 5. Make that 6. Take the door off, take those 6 screws out. There's 4 more underneath the control panel. 1, 2, 3, 4. You have to get this metal above that clip. So, and it's not simple to do. You can't just like, I couldn't push down on it. So I used a pick. If I can get a better angle here. That'll work. Just had a pick in my garage. The cotter pins. Pick it up a little bit, slide it right over the top, and it starts coming out. Do the same on the other side. The face sheet comes forward. Another quick disconnect connector. Pick it up and slide it off. Pretty simple. So we got 6 screws in the front face with the door removal. We have 4 on top, and then the control panel removal. Control panel with those 2 clips underneath there is probably the hardest. But you have to take the control panel off to get these 4 screws on the top of this out. So then we'll set this aside. So we have 4 rollers we have to replace, and there's a belt tensioner. In order to get to access to that, we have to take the drum out. We have to take off this cover plate here. There's 2 screws here, 1 here and 1 over here. And this cover plate will come off. This is your blower motor. Once we have those screws out, we need to take off this top piece here, which has 4 or 5 screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And this piece will come off because the drum will not come forward to come out. So mind you, this hasn't been cleaned in a while, so it's probably going to be pretty dirty. So we'll take off the 4 screws on the blower motor suction side. This one slides down, and we'll stick that aside. So the tensioner that we're looking for is back there. So we may have to take a little bit more apart to get to the tensioner. I can see it from here, but I gotta figure out how to get to it. So we're just gonna go for it here. I'm gonna take the top off. It holds the control panel. Take the 4 screws out. Five screws. And this piece should come off. There's probably a connector on here somewhere. Sure enough. So these little clips back here, they just hold the wire. You just twist them. They're twisted together like so. Just twist them apart and separate them to get your wires out. Not a big deal. I'm going to set this aside with the 5 screws on top of it. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to get this wiring out of the way, because the drum, once we take these 4 screws in the front out, this whole front face is going to come off and the drum's going to drop down. That is going to give us access to the front rollers. Pull the drum out, we have access to the back rollers. So this is another one of those little twisty tie things. Just untwist it, pop your wire out. And I'll get that out of the way. This guy stays at the front. So now we're going to take the 1, 2, 3, 4 screws. And as we take this forward, the whole drum's going to drop. So we're going to try and not let that happen. Not let it drop. We're going to try and keep control of it, okay? Start at the bottom. Last one I'm going to take out is that one, because I need the ability to have my left hand inside. So there's the 3 of those. Hold the drum, and I'm going to rest this piece on my arm here. These are finished edges, so they're not going to be sharp. It has little clips on the back of this, and there's a connector down here at the bottom. I told you there's another one. That connector right there. Just pinch that sucker and take it off. So that's disconnected. Now the drum's about to come out. So we're going to set this aside because we're going to take this in the garage. And these are the rollers that we're looking at here. And there's 2 in the back. The ones in the back are probably bad. So now the belt is now, tension is still on it, but we can get back to the tensioner. Which, if I can show you where it's at here. That white pulley is the tensioner. It's incredibly simple to release the tension. We're going to go away from where the pulley's pulling, because right now the tensioner is engaged even more because the drum dropped down. So if I pick the drum up, you see the tensioner move there. So I'm sure someone online is going to tell me I'm doing this wrong. I'm just going to pull it over a little bit, release the belt, I'm going to drop the tensioner. I know you couldn't see that, but I'll, when I get the drum out, I'll show you how I did that. So now the drum should be fully loose, and we should be able to pull it out. We'll leave the belt inside here, drop it out of the way, slide it forward, and that's your drum. Not much to it. You got your felt around the outside on both edges. I'm going to make sure that's good. If it's not, you want to replace that. Try not to damage it. So there's that tensioner right there. And what I did was I just kind of pulled it towards, there's no tension on it now because the belt's not riding on it right. And the spring came off. There's your spring that holds the tensioner. So that spring will be hooked up to it. I just pulled it forward and slipped the belt off. So once we put the new drum in, we'll have the cable hanging down. And we'll hook all that stuff back up because we'll leave the spring on it. And there's the other two rollers back there. This guy, you can see all the debris right here. This is probably the one with the bat. You can hear it. So that's what we're going to change out. In order to take this off, we have to get to the bolts behind it. So we have to remove this shroud here. Okay, to remove the backing plate here, we have to take screws off the very back side, and then this whole thing will lift up. Be cautious of your wiring harness here. When you end up getting it off, we'll have to disconnect some wires there. I don't know if they connect to this, so they might go down to the heater or something. So there's 6 or 8 screws in the back. I started taking them out. One above the outlet, 2 on each side, and 2 on the top. So 2, 4, 6, 7 screws total. I already took that one out. So those 7 screws, make sure you throw them on the ground so you can't find them later. And this thing should pick up. Looks like we also have to disconnect the heater box here. I don't want to take this whole thing out, so I'm going to take this screw out here, and it's going to slide just enough out of the way, I believe. Make that 2 screws, one there and one here. So we can disengage it from that, set it aside. Now that whole thing will slide out. There's little clips on it. See the catch there? That catch right there. Just these pieces just sit on top of it. There's some on the top and some on the bottom. So we got some wiring we got to take out of the way here. Probably should have done this beforehand. Get this guy out of there. Now this stuff is sharp. So this one you'll have to disconnect because it's connected back here. So we're going to leave this one in, take this one out, and disconnect it here. So that's what the inside looks like. So make sure you vacuum it out before you put it all back together. You know, lint is a fire hazard. So now let's go change the rollers. All right, we're going to change one of the rollers out now. It's a 9/16 on the big side for the nut, And you can hold the front if you need to with a 5/16 on the front. The new ones come with all new hardware, so you don't have to reuse the old stuff. Just pops right out. A couple washers on there, one on the back side, one on the front, and then the roller. So there's an old roller. So I lied to you. It doesn't come with new washers. So I had to transfer the washer over here. Just flops in the hole like so. Put on the new nut. Hold it still. Give it a little push on the end there, make sure it's getting tight. Beautiful. And then we'll pivot it. So we can do the other one. Same procedure for all three. Beautiful. And then do the other two on the other part, and then we go back together. So changing the idler pulley out is just as easy or simple. It's one screw. Get back here to look at it. This screw here, take it out, put it back on, make sure it's underneath this switch right here. So I think if the belt breaks, this thing drops down and hits that switch, which kills the motor. So when you actually put your pulley back, put your belt back on, it's going to go around here. So I think it's the other way around. To the pulley to supply tension to it. Which I was right. And it goes around the drum. Snakes around. Get to that in a minute. But it's a shoulder bolt. Here's the old one if you don't know what a shoulder bolt is. See how the bolt has a big space on the end there? That goes as a bushing, acts as a bushing to go in that hole. And this thing will pivot back and forth and won't lock up. Now I'm changing mine out because I'm in there and it came with the kit. And I don't know exactly which roller was bad, and it could be this guy once it gets tension on it. Doesn't seem to be very bad, but you never know. And I mean, this could be the motor once it gets tension on it. So the next step is to put it all back together. and see if it fixed it. Hopefully it did. Now that I've fully cleaned it and changed all the rollers out and the idler pulley there and the spring, we're going to start putting it back together. First piece to go in is going to be the back. Don't forget that when you set that back piece in there, it's got to go into these two pieces here to hold it, and then the screws will pull it tight towards the bottom. And then we'll put the heater back on. Then we'll put the belt in there with the drum around it. Then we'll stick the front piece on. So this is the back piece. And these are the two pieces that go underneath those flanges in the back. There's the two rollers we changed out. Good to go. So we're going to drop it in the hole here. Get it underneath the wire harness. There we go. Reattach our harness. Slide our piece in here. Connect our cannon plug. There we go. And we're going to start from the top and start all our screws first. You don't want to put a screw in and torque it down in case you have to take them back out. You want it to be just a little bit loose so you can move it around a little bit. Make sure all they're started, and then we'll smoke them down. So we're going to start with the top two here. If you don't have one of these lights, you got to get one. They're freaking awesome. So we're going to make sure our holes are lined up here, which they're not. So we got to slide it back and forth a little bit just to find our hole. Now you can use a screw gun if you want on this. I just figured I'll just use a screwdriver to start with, get them all started. Again, I'm not smoking them down, I'm just bringing them in so they hold it. We're going to do that the rest of the way around, and then we'll tighten them all down. Alright, now that they're all started, we can tighten them all up. I like to start from the bottom one first, and that's going to pull the whole piece in. 7 screws total. 2 on the side, 2 on the top, and 1 on the bottom. Next, we're going to reattach the heater. And it's got 2 flanges that go up underneath here, one on the top and slides in the bottom there. It's got a keeper up front here that drops into a groove in this bracket, which keeps pressure on it towards the back of the dryer to make sure that it stays seated. And then we have the 2 screws, one here and one here. Again, don't smoke either of them down until they're both started. Next is to put the belt in with the drum, and then we'll work on putting on the front part. So you can reuse the old belt if you want. This one came with the new belt, so we're going to change it out because we're in there. The old belt is good, save it. You never know, you just need a belt. You have to go through pretty much the same rigmarole to change the belt out, but this one is brand new, so we're going to use the new one. So remember, when you run it, it's going to go around the drum, right? Then it's going to go around that pulley there, the motor, and then you'll fish it around the tensioner to keep tension on it. So we'll bring the drum over and slide the drum in and then put on the belt. So looking at this drum, I don't think it makes a difference which way it goes. And if it does, I'm sure someone will chastise me and tell me otherwise. So I lay over the drum like so. Stick it in the. This is going to sit up here on top, and then the front piece is going to come in and sit on here. We're going to start with the top bar first, and that'll hold it for us so we can set everything else up. So you also want to make sure that the belt is in the back, not around the front. So I think maybe it might help if we were to hold the belt up on the drum here and then set it down inside there. That way the belt stays secure to the drum and sits inside. So when you put the drum in, you want to pull these rollers all the way forward. Otherwise they'll get caught on the felt here and they won't ride right. When you stick the drum in as well, you want to start your idler pulley down there. I just learned this, so I take it back apart. Idler pulley's back there, so I'm going to pick the drum up. Right now it's stuck on something. Rested on the back rollers. I'm going to stick my hand in here, make sure that So put your belt around your drum, hold the belt up high as you slide the drum in the hole, engage the drum on the back two rollers. Then you're going to feel underneath, which is not that easy because I don't do this all the time, so there's that factor in. See the belt back there? It's got to go around the tensioner. Go on this side over here, you can see it better. Yeah. Got to go around the tensioner there, and then around the motor. And you want to make sure the splines go around the motor, and then the non-spline side goes on the tensioner. You're basically going to stick your hands up underneath, one on each side, and just feed it in there. It's not easy, so I had it around the one side of the pulley. I guess I can take it off and show you. You won't be able to see it because my hands are going to go in there, but here's my hands. So I pulled the pulley over and I fed pulled the pulley over and I fed the belt underneath and onto the motor. It should make a kind of like an S curve. It should come down the drum over here, go around the pulley, or excuse me, around the motor, back around the pulley, and then around this side of the drum. And you want to do that before you put any of the front stuff on, because you won't be able to get your hands past this area here because there's a roller here, housing part here, and all this stuff is pretty much full. So do that before you put anything on the front on. So the next part, because I've taken this apart 3 times now, is going to be the front drum support housing. Take the pulleys, push them all the way aft, or the rollers. You'll engage them on the drum from underneath. And then you'll pick it up. And feed it into the brackets over here. Makes it a little harder because you have that tension around the belt, right? So now if I were to make sure we're all engaged first, make sure your teeth are engaged here and engaged down here, and then you'll see this, see the blower motor spinning, and the belt will find its merry housing happiness as it goes around. So next we're going to put these 4 screws in. Again, don't smoke all the way down until you get them all started. Using an electric drill on these, you want to be careful not to strip the screws out. It's very simple and easy to do when you're using an electric drill. Next going to be this housing piece. This guy goes in here. Don't forget that. It's hard to get to once the front housing's on. It's going to walk over like so. This one's going to connect to, I don't know, something. These two are going to go through this housing hole here on the front. There's only one area to hold wiring here, and that's when these guys come through. It's going to attach to both those. This goes to the door itself. Make sure when you put this on, this slot goes inside here. Then you have the slots here on the edge that have to engage in the frame. And this goes above, like so. Engage that. Engage these two. I'm going to start 2 of the 5 screws over here so it doesn't come disengaged. Do not smoke down. We are not engaged over here. Popped out of that center. So there we go. Hear the click. Now we can start the 2 on this side. Tighten these 4 down. This one goes to the box clip on here. Once you got the front clip on here that holds the drum, and you spin and make sure the drum and the motor spin at the same time because of your belt, you're good. Connect your connector on the bottom down there. Then we have to put on the blower housing in order to suck the water hair, the humidity out of here. This was 4 screws holding this on, if you don't recall. So good. So this has to go around the outside of this guy to seal it. All right. So again, we're going to start all of our screws first. These are just your standard sheet metal screws, right? There's 4 of them. So when we tighten this, we're going to push up on it. We'll tighten this guy first. Work our way down. Remember, this is just going into plastic, so don't tighten them too tight where you start stripping the threads out. These 3 are going into just the metals, the sheet metal screws, and you can strip those out pretty easily as well. Now, you know this screw is in like so because there's a plate right here for it to cover. And then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the door. So we're going to slip that piece back in. When you stick it in, there's little channels on the bottom for it to sit into. So those won't be easily seen. Then we have these clips on top that we had to pry up, remember? Pry the face of the door up to pop it out. So if you can see down there, it's just sitting right in it. It holds it. Slide this up. Put our door lock connector on. Maybe. And then we're going to just kind of just shove it forward. Clip, clip. Those are in. So remember, there's 2 connectors. This one. I don't know where the other one went. There it is. That go to your motherboard. There's a wire harness clip behind this panel as well. That's where that little plastic nipple is sticking right there. So we're going to put those in the thing and just twist it to hold it in place. So I quit losing them behind the wall here. Then we're going to put our 4 screws in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Start them all first. Get them all started, you can tighten them up. Again, they're just sheet metal screws going into thin metal, so don't over torque them because you'll strip them out. Then you'll be really mad at yourself. I know I would be. Next piece we're going to put on is the face, your control board. If you recall, these clips here go inside these 2 grooves, and they were hard to get out. Remember, I had to use the pick to get in there. You also have those guys. That one goes in there. That one goes in there. It comes up from the top and clips down. Before we really try to put this on really good, we're going to make sure we put our cannon plugs on, our connectors first. So let's connect our two connectors. Slip connectors, 1 and 2. There's no wire ties on this side for these to go into. Like so. And then we have the bottom is engaged in the groove, right? And then once you do that, push in and down, the two bottom clips are in, the ones that we had a hard time getting out. And then these guys are now, it's also captured. Remember, get these out, you push aft and just pick it up a little bit on both sides. And it pops right out. And then it's held up by those two clips in there. So if you end up breaking those, it'll still hold on. You don't have to buy a new $100 piece. It'll be okay. And remember, this is not held in with any screws at all. Just clips in with plastic clips. So now we're onto the door. Remember, the door has a keyway on one side that goes inside this hole and then drops down. Just a screw sticking out of it. Because the door's heavy, this helps you to put it in position to hold it. Goes in that keyway like so, and then just sits there. So what we're going to do real quick is we're going to put the other 4 screws in. Now, you got to pay attention to some of this stuff because some of these screws are sheet metal screws and some of these screws are not. That is a threaded screw, and that is a threaded screw, fine thread, and these two are sheet metal. We're going to start them all, including the doors, the 2 on the door. They are quite a bit larger because they go through this plastic housing first. Very simple, thread right in. I'm going to tighten the top one first to draw it in. And the last 2 screws we have hold the top on. So we'll close the door, make sure it closes good. Beautiful. Pops open. Again, spin this guy. Feels pretty good. So these last 2 screws go into here and there when we slide the top on. So over the top. Just pops in. Put your last 2 bolts in. You get the picture. And that's how you change the rollers and the belt and the idler pulley on a dryer. Takes a while, but once you do it once, it ain't no big deal. Have thumb out.